Hey gang, Uncle Todd and Sonny here. And in the latest episode of Good Omens, Azraphale's driving back from Edinburgh when he keeps passing the same hitchhiker until finally he stops. And she gets into the car, and it turns out this is actually Shakes. And she starts to question him about Gabriel, and he tells her he doesn't know what she's talking about. And then she has him stop and get out. She says, "Thank you for telling me where he is." And he said, "I didn't tell you anything." She goes, "Yes, but you did now." Disappears. So, he's racing back to Soho to get to his bookshop. We then cut, most of this episode is a flashback. We then cut to 1941 in London. If you saw last season, you know there was a scene where Azraphale was making a deal with some Germans over some books, and they were going to double cross him, and then Crowley saved him by diverting one of the bombs to hit the church. So we cut back to there, and after they leave, they head to West End Theatre, where Crowley is delivering some bottles of illegal booze, apparently. Or, well, black market booze, because, everything's hard to get. But all the bottles are broken because he was parked next to where a bomb went off. Plus, when they learn that the headliner has gotten arrested for desertion, Azraphale steps forward saying he is a magician and will gladly fill in. Then we cut to hell, where two of the people who are doing basically inbounds and sorting them into the proper punishment, lots of Nazis. One of the inbound takers, Furfur, is talking to Shakes at the bottled fire fountain. Instead of a water fountain, it's a fire fountain. Anyway, and she tells him that there's a opening in Temptations if he's interested in getting out of there. And he says, well, yeah, he would be, but how would he do that? And she said, well, if you ever find anything happening between a demon and an angel, say, and report that to the Dark Command, you might be up for a promotion. He's like, yeah, I could do that. How could I ever thank you for this? Well, there may come a day sometime, and it may never happen, but I may ask you to do something, and you'll do it. So, while he's processing more intakes, he comes upon the three Germans that were blown up in the airstrike. And they're arguing that they shouldn't be there because he had planned the bombs where they would drop, and they weren't going to drop there if it hadn't been for Crowley being in that church and somehow diverting them. Well, this gets Furfur interested. A demon in hollow ground? And then he learns of Mr. Azraphale. Interesting. So, he has him tell him everything, and then he gives them an ultimatum. They can go back to Earth. They'd have to be zombies. And for 48 hours. And if they find information, they can call him using a specific ring. And he will come, get the evidence, and in return, he will set them free from damnation. The alternative is they get turned into flies, get stuck on a spider web where they will be eaten, digested, pooped back out, reconstituted, and go through it again for eternity. So they sign. And they return to their bodies as living dead. Now they also have an insatiable lust to eat brains. They don't have to do it all the time. But when it comes over them, they've got to find someone and eat them. They also have a problem with their parts dropping off because, well, they're not alive. Anyway, so they head to the bookshop after feeding on a tramp done in shadow. It's very clever. Where they watch Crowley and Azraphale talking, but they can't hear them. One of them says he can read lips, but what he reads is just what he gives them is a bunch of gibberish, so they think he can't read lips. Then they follow him over to a magic shop, where one of them goes in as a person looking around, keeping his back to them, and learns that Azraphale is needing to buy a showstopper trick for his performance at the West End Theater. And he buys the bullet catch, which is a very dangerous trick. It has killed 5 people before, but he's insistent. Well, you're going to need someone to help you with this, someone you can trust who's a good shot. So Crowley agrees to do the act with him. They pay and they leave. And the other 2 zombies come in and they find out. Well, basically, they eat the shopkeeper. Again, this is done off screen, although there's a dummy that falls over, a ventriloquist dummy that falls over, and the head pops off and streamers come out. They're clever the way they disguise the nastiness that goes on in this episode. I commend them for that. So, then they head to the theater, where Azraphale is calling up Crowley to give him an assist and performing legerdemain badly. They call Furfur. He shows up, punches in his miracle blocked card, like a card you get at a coffee shop, so many and you get one free. He punches a hole, and now there are no miracles for the next half hour. Azraphale is having trouble doing his tricks. Crowley, seeing this, tests things and realizes he can't perform any miracles. But they got to do their act. So he goes forward, loads the gun. Then he reveals, he's never really shot a gun before. But they perform the trick. Crowley manages to shoot past him. And Azraphale pops the bullet through his, like he caught it. Crowd goes up. Wah! Then, in his dressing room, where Crowley and he are talking, Furfur comes in, tells them he's from hell, and he has found out that they're working together. And they say, "We don't even know you. We don't know what you're talking about." So he brings in the 3 zombies. And he pulls up a rather blood-stained copy of the same instructions for the bullet catch that Crowley was carrying. And he shows them the evidence. He took a picture of them on stage together, looking out at the audience and smiling. And he shows it to Crowley. Crowley then shows it to Azraphale. And then the zombies go, hey, we did what you asked. How about your end of the deal? He goes, oh, yes. Clicks off 3 runs. You are now free. Aren't we supposed to be human? It's like, no. That's according to Article 13. You must remain undead. And then he turns, asks for the photograph back. Azraphale puts it in the envelope. Does a little, and then hands it back to him. He leaves, and the other 3 kind of stumble out, picking up their parts as they go. Mark Gatiss, playing one of the zombies, goes, well, maybe it won't be too bad. Then Furfur gets to hell, goes to see the Dark Command, and pulls out a flyer for the East End Theater. So he is now stuck where he was. Anyway, Crowley and Azraphale were talking, and it turns out Azraphale did a simple switch. He had learned magic from a good magician, and although he is clumsy, when the time came, he did it correctly. The gibberish was his magic words. They actually did lip read correctly. So, we cut back to present day hell. Shanks goes to see Beelzebub. She says she knows Gabriel was in that bookshop. And if Beelzebub will just give her a bunch of hell-spawned demons for her to command, she can go in there and lay waste to everything and get Gabriel. Beelzebub says, fine. You have to lead them. You have to be in the front. You have to be boots on the ground. Shanks says, I can do that. Back up topside, Azraphale gets back to the shop, and he and Crowley are discussing things, and he finds that Crowley's attempt to get Nina and Maggie together failed, so it's off to his plan, having a big meeting of the Shop Owners Association. And that's where we leave it. So, we still haven't found out what it is Gabriel was wanting them to prevent, some kind of Armageddon. And now we've got a demon army planning to attack Azraphale's bookshop. Things are not looking good. I like the flashback in this one with the zombies. I like them doing a zombie episode. That was really neat. It was different. And I like the way they covered from having any gore, because this is a PG-13 kind of show, not R. And yeah, I did find that interesting. I'm curious to see how the zombies will reappear, because they didn't let them go out, just walk off in 1941 England without planning to have them come back. I'm sure they'll be part of the army or something else in the last episode. But yeah, things are heating up, and I'm looking forward to it. Please hit like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.